In this video, we're going to be going over the formatting options in Fantasy Grounds Classic. And for the purposes of this video, we're going to be using the core RPG rule set, which most other rule sets are based on. And so the information will be applicable to just about any rule set that you might be using. So the two main topics that I wanted to talk about are unformatted text fields and formatted text fields. There's two main types of text fields used within Fantasy Grounds. Um, and as the name implies, with unformatted text fields, we are restricted from applying any kind of formatting to it to change how it looks or appears. With formatted text fields, we have a lot more capabilities in order to play around with it. Now, most campaign data types will have at least one formatted text field and zero or perhaps one or more unformatted text fields. So let's take a look at what that is. So an unformatted text field can have no formatting applied. So I've got two example entries open here. I have an item and an NPC record. Now, in both of these cases, in the items case, the non-ID name, notes, cost, and weight are unformatted, meaning that I am restricted from, I can't make it bold or italic or anything like that. And here on the NPC record, I have, similarly, I have things like the size and the reach, roles, equipment, languages, and non-ID name are all unformatted text fields. You cannot apply any kind of formatting to them. Now, both of these record types do have a single formatted text field. Here on the item, this is generally used as the description, so you can apply that kind of formatting to this descriptive area. Here on the NPC record, we actually have a second tab. So the main tab is all your unformatted information. And the notes tab, sometimes it's a description tab or something else. And this area will be a formatted text field where you can apply the various kinds of formatting. Now, the purpose of the unformatted text fields is because often the information located within these fields is required by Fantasy Grounds to do some kind of an automation. So, for example, the weight of an object is used to update the character sheet to see how much they're currently carrying. And having all kinds of strange text formatting can mess with Fantasy Grounds' understanding of the values associated. Similarly with the cost, or any specified attack or damage rolls that may be associated with this NPC. We don't want to have all of that formatting complicating the issue, and so these are kept as unformatted text fields. Formatted text fields give us quite a few more options, though, for how we can control the display and appearance of the various entries that we're looking at. So I've got a story entry here. Now, story entry consists of just a single formatted text field. Additionally, things like the notes are formatted text fields. Notes are unique in that they're the only ones that players can create themselves. So players can create their own. Additionally, quests are largely just simple entries with a single formatted text field. Some rule sets will have a few additional fields, but largely they're relatively simple entries as well. But for the rest of this, we're going to use story entries to go ahead and demonstrate the various properties of our formatted text field. So up our story entry, we'll give it a name. We'll call this demonstrating formatted text. All right, so let's type in some general text. So this is some general text that we'll use for demonstration. Now, this general text that we use, we can apply certain kinds of formatting, standard ones that you're used to in most any kind of text editor. You can apply things like bold, italics, and underline. And you can do that by right-clicking, selecting an area, right-clicking, and then clicking on formatting, and then you'll have the options of bold, italics, and underline. And that can be applied. Or you can use the keyboard shortcuts, Control-I, Control-U for underline, Control-B for bold, and so forth. And so you can toggle back and forth between those various kinds of formatted text. Additionally, here in our formatted text fields, we have 6 different paragraph types that we can use. Now, it's important to note here in Fantasy Grounds that your paragraph can contain a lot of information, but each time you hit the Enter key here in Fantasy Grounds, it's generating that new line is now a new paragraph. So even if you have a line that is particularly long and it contains lots of text on and 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 on, and you can see that this set of text takes up multiple lines. However, this is all part of the same paragraph. But as soon as I hit the Enter key and it comes down here to a new paragraph, this now counts as a new paragraph. Now, the reason why I'm emphasizing this is that each paragraph can be one of the 6 different paragraph types. So the paragraph types, we're going to start off with the first one, which is your plain text. This is what you already see here. And you can change the paragraph type either using the right click on that text and selecting paragraph types. And you can see here it has the 6 types listed. Now, this plain text version, or this body text is what it's Fantasy Grounds calls it. That's what the default is. You can also switch using the Control 1 through 6 keyboard shortcuts. So Control 1 makes it body text, and then Control 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 will do the other ones, which we'll go ahead and demonstrate now. So body text, as you can see here, can be formatted in terms of bold, italic, and underline. Starting off a new paragraph, let's say what we can do here for our second paragraph type is a header. So if I type in, let's say this is my kingdom header, and all the information that follows is going to be related to this particular kingdom. And then I'll have some text, and then I'll have a point of interest header, and some more text. So each of these headers, again, I can right-click, click paragraph type, and select heading. And you can see here now that it's changed the look and feel of that entire paragraph. I can also use the Control 2. So I'll use Control 1 now to set it back to body text, and Control 2 to set it to a header. I can do the same thing here for my point of interest header. And you'll notice it does apply to the entire paragraph. As I said, each paragraph can be one of these types. You can't mix and match. So I could make this very long one to be one big long header, or back to plain body text. Another thing to note is that with your headers, you cannot apply bold, italic, or underline formatting. It doesn't allow you to do that. The look and feel of what each of these and how it's displayed is defined in the theme that you currently have loaded. So if you want it to look differently, the only way is to use a different theme or create your own theme with the look and feel the way you want it to be. So that is number 2, paragraph type number 2, the header paragraph or heading paragraph type. The third paragraph type is the chat frame. Now, I created this using the Control 3. I'll use Control 1 to set it back to default. And I can do that either on a blank line or with text already there. To act as a chat frame here, I'll use the keyboard shortcut, paragraph type chat frame. And you'll notice that with a chat frame, it has this symbol here along the left-hand side. Now, when I click this symbol, this chat bubble, it outputs whatever is in there to the chat. So this makes it handy to give information to the players. We can say, you know, this is, for example, if I want to provide a description of the room that the players are entering, I can type up that description here in a chat bubble, and then with the entry open, I can go ahead and click it. With these chat bubbles, you can also set a speaker so that rather than appearing as if it comes from nobody, you can set it to appear as if it's being said by somebody in particular. Now to do that, we can right click and go back to paragraph types. And now we have a new option up here at the top called Assign Speaker. Once we assign a speaker, it creates this little dot that separates the speaker to the left and the message to the right. So I'm going to type in the name of the speaker, Bob the Builder. And now notice when I click on the speech bubble, it appears that it's been said by Bob the Builder as opposed to just being output as text. Now, unfortunately, we cannot define a language that to be used here in the chat frame, but we can output to a particular language. So let's go ahead and define a language here. Just create a simple one. Call it common, if I can spell, call it common, and why doesn't it? It doesn't have any language fonts loaded. Okay. But if you have a language defined that has a language font, you can pre-select the language field here on the chat, and then when you press the speech bubble, it will output in that language. Now note that this will only work if a speaker is set. If there is no speaker set, then it will always just output it in as written. So for example, if I have this speech or chat frame with no speaker set, even though I have selected common, I output it, it's just going to print it out as it's written. Another thing to note is that here in the chat frame, you cannot use bold, italic, or underlined formatting. It does not allow that, so you can't use those from within a chat frame. You also cannot have a single chat frame that has multiple lines. If I hit the Enter key, it's going to generate a new paragraph. You can't have a paragraph inside of a paragraph, so you cannot have multiple lines. There is a way to do it, but it requires you to manually edit the XML outside of Fantasy Grounds. There's no way to do it directly from within Fantasy Grounds. All right, so that's number 3. Our fourth type of paragraph is going to be our bulleted list. So if I hit Control 4, or if I right click and do paragraph type list, it's going to create a little bullet, and I can type in an entry here, entry 1. If I hit enter, it'll continue the bulleted list, but notice the second entry is its own paragraph. It just inherits the paragraph type from the previous entry. So I can change the paragraph type of, say, the one in the middle without affecting 1 and 3. So if I can take this entry 2 and turn it into a heading, and it will just behave just fine, and it'll entry 1 and entry 3 will not be affected. Or I can change it back, and it'll align them up nicely together. So with these bulleted lists, unfortunately, we can't do a numbered list at present. So you can't do 1, 2, 3, but you can do just bulleted lists here. However, you do have the option to use underline, italics, and bold here within these entries. All right, so that's paragraph 4. So let's move on to paragraph 5. Paragraph type 5. Now this is going to be one of the most commonly used paragraph types, and that's our links to Fantasy Grounds entries. So you can create a blank link by hitting Control 5, and it creates this empty link. Now we can link to any particular entry, so for example an NPC entry, just by dragging and dropping that link. If we notice how when I drag and dropped it onto the square image, it did not copy the text. If I drag and drop it here to the right, it copies the text over. If there is any kind of lettering or words pre-written on that link, it will not copy the text over. It will just keep whatever is there, even if it's a single space. So if I have one single space added, it looks like it's empty, but if I drag and drop it, it will not copy the text over. Otherwise, it will copy over the title of the entry being dragged and dropped. You can also, even on a non-empty link, Fantasy Grounds will convert any link into a link if you just drag and drop it um, onto the space there. So if I drag and drop this, you can see it's copied over the text. This first one did not because there was a space there. So that is our links, and you can link just about anything. You can link to images and maps. You can link to tables, stories, quests, NPCs, encounters. All of these data types, you can go ahead and create entries and then copy the links over. So this is a great, very, very commonly used method to organize your data and keep it all simple. And you can link to others, like a story entry can link to other story entries. It's great use for all kinds of organizational purposes. And last, the sixth and final paragraph type is going to be one of the more complicated ones, and this is a formatted table. Now, don't get it confused with the rollable tables, which are its own data type. As a paragraph, we can create a formatted table here within Fantasy Grounds. Now, to create that, we can use Control-6, or we can right-click Paragraph Types and go to Table. Now, notice when you create a table, initially it fills the entire width of the entry, and that'll expand however big or small you adjust the size of the entry. You can put information in. You can put you can make some parts of it bold or italic. You can include that kind of formatting there. So let's delete that and create it again. So now I have my entry, and I've got a single field that spans the width. I can add additional columns to the right by hitting the Control-Tab button. Now, Control-Tab will create a new entry, and it will divide the widths evenly among them. If I hit Control-Tab again, now I have 3 columns. If I hit Control-Tab again, it'll be 4, and you can notice that it resizes them so that they take up equal amounts of space. Now, let's say I don't want my columns to be equally sized. I can shrink or grow the size of any particular column using the Control+ button. So let's say I'm in this second column and I want it to be a little wider than the rest. If I hit Control+, it now creates a single column entry with as if it were one more wider. So this entire thing is now split into 5 even sections, but 2 and 3 are actually a single column. I can do the same thing over here by creating an extra one, and now entry 2 and 4 are twice as wide as they would otherwise be. If I hit Control-, it will shrink them down to their original size. Now, when I hit Enter, it does not create the entire line that I created here, the entire 4-column table that I currently have defined. When I hit Enter, it will create a new paragraph just below with a single entry. But you'll notice that the single entry is aligned to the width of the entry above it. So in this case, I have a single column or single cell here that is the width of the one above it. If I want to increase that, I can hit Control+. If I want to add any more to the right, I can hit Control-Tab again. Now, I can use these various commands to create as many or as intricately detailed a table as I would like. The text within the table can, of course, be can have formatting applied like bold, italic, and underline. So you can have your header row, you know, A, B, C, and D, and I can make all of these bold if I want to, and all of the text below it to be normal, whatever I would like. The only thing you really can't do is you cannot have links or other paragraph types within these cells. Each cell just will contain text, the normal text or bold, italic, or underline type of text. So those are the 6 different paragraph types that you can use. Again, there's body text, is the first one, control 1. Control 2 is your heading, these heading text. Control 3 is going to be your chat frame that allows you to output chat to the chat window. Paragraph 4 is going to be your bulleted list, 5 is your links, and 6 is your formatted table.